everyone. Thank you for joining us for another More Talks. I'm your host, Michael Orr. This is More Talks presented by Thomas More University, where we present short, powerful talks devoted to spreading ideas, thoughts, and information to our community. And today I'm very excited to introduce our panelists. We have Terry Connors, who is the Athletics Director for Thomas More University. We have Lindsay Egan, who is the Assistant Athletics Director for Thomas More University and Head Softball Coach. We have Jeff Hans, who is the Head Women's Basketball Coach for Thomas More University. And we have Trevor Stellman, who is the Head Football Coach for Thomas More University. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. As a quick reminder, this More Talks is being recorded. It will be made available on Thomas More University's Moreover website. We'll be sending out a link to its final location, which will be at more.thomasmore.edu. You can go find that after the presentation. And if you find these talks engaging and thought-provoking, if they have information you want to share with your community, please feel free to share that with others. So again, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I'd love to give you a second to introduce yourselves and say a few words. Terry, if you want to start.
Sure. Terry Connor, Director of Athletics, and you know, we're this talk is going to be centered around whether we're playing or not this fall. So we've got some interesting information and try and give some guidance the best we can on what we know and what we're working towards right now.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. And I'm sure that you've got a lot of information and there are certainly a lot of questions. Lindsay, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, I'm Lindsay Egan. I'm the head softball coach here, assistant athletic director. So yeah, we're here to answer any questions.
Wonderful. Jeff?
Hey, Jeff Hans, head women's basketball coach, going on my 10th year here at Thomas More University, and excited to hopefully get things going within the next month.
I think we all are. And Trevor?
Trevor Stellman, head football coach, also an alum of Thomas More. So excited to be here and share what we're planning and how we hope to get back to as much normalcy as we can.
I think we all hope for that too. I do have several questions that I have lined up today that I want to ask, but I also want to encourage our audience, if you're listening in, if you have questions that you want answered, you can use Zoom's chat feature to submit questions over just to the right of the screen if you open that up. And so I'd be more than happy to moderate those as well. I want to make sure that we are answering your questions. But to start, I think the biggest question for everyone right now, we've announced our fall season, but as we all know, more information is developing. The situation is constantly changing. So I want to know, do you guys think that we're going to play this fall? Terry, do you mind starting off this one?
Sure. You know, we obviously been on a lot of calls and everything, and right now we're planning on playing full. You know, well, I shouldn't say full. Our schedules have been modified and that, but right now we are planning on playing. Our governing body, the NAIA, is not made any announcements to the contrary. Our conference is set and ready to play this fall. So that's what our plan is to be able to do. We've modified some schedules so that we're trying to limit our out of town overnight trips so that we're not staying in the hotels and that, so that we can limit our travel a little bit. So that's one of the modifications we've done. But other than that, you know, we're hoping that things continue to progress and we can move forward.
Excellent. Yeah, it sounds like you guys have plans in place. I know I've heard from several people that, you know, you guys are working real hard on making those come together. In terms of travel, that's actually one of the questions that I had on here. So I think that tees in nicely to this. How do you guys think this will affect travel for away games, and what do you think away games will be like? Are you guys prepared for that right now?
Yeah, I think we are. You know, we've got several protocols in place for travel. You know, and I think Trevor will be able to talk to this in a minute here and that. But, you know, we've talked about, you know, when we're traveling on buses or some of the teams that go in vans, you know, our kids are going to be in a mask when they're traveling, and that, at least as of right now, our kids will be screened prior to getting on a bus or van, and they'll be screened when they get off, when they get to the place of competition. So, Trevor, I don't know if you have more to add. I know you and I have talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, one of the nice things, I shouldn't say nice with this situation, but one of the things that we've worked with is working with our opponents to change game times. The luxury of this conference is that we are all very close for the most part, and that we can get there the day of the game. So the ones that are a little bit further, we've worked with those schools to make it to where we can leave the day of and still get down there and feel ready to play. Because the last thing you want to do is ultimately is to give the home team an advantage because somebody's traveling, a distance that isn't, suitable to playing a game at the same time. So working with those schools and them allowing us to make some room and us doing the same for some other schools as well, I think it's going to help the travel just so that we're exposing our kids to there's little environments outside of what we can control.
That's fantastic. And it's really great to hear that you have that level of communication with the other teams, with the other schools, that you guys are all cooperating with each other to keep level playing field. What has you guys' experiences been like? Have you been hearing much from other schools or been in communication with other coaches? I want to open that up to everybody. Have there been much communication for you guys?
I can go first because for football, obviously with our sport, with Lindsay's being in the spring and Jeff's being in the winter time, one of the things that has been nice as a football coach is that we've met probably twice a month on Zoom to go over different things and to make sure that we're all on the same page. And our schedule changing was the result of one of those Zoom meetings. So being able to have that communication and with our commissioner, Eric Ward, being on those calls as well, allows all of us to know what's going on and kind of where we're moving to get in the right direction so that we can always make sure that our players are on the same page as we are. So that's been greatly beneficial, I know, to us in the preparation process.
I was going to say from women's basketball, and we had our spring meeting in May or whatever. I've talked to a few coaches here or there. Would see a lot of them out recruiting right now, but we can be out a little bit, but a lot of coaches are choosing not to. So we're just trying to figure that part of it out. But Trevor and volleyball and the soccer, where they're playing, we go with our team.
Excellent. And if it would be, I'm sorry to ask our audience, if it would be possible to mute your microphones for the duration right now. I apologize for having to ask. We want to make sure that we can hear our panelists. Thank you very much. So with that in mind, you already mentioned, masks being used, athletes being taken protections. Are there other precautions that are being taken right now for student athletes? And what have practices looked like recently?
So one, we're doing some workouts, but there's really no practices going on at this time. And some of the protocols, you've got we have things in place. Our trainers, when athletes come in to work out, they get their temperature taken, and they're asked their screening questions and that, and that's the same thing that'll take place every day before their practices. So, one of the things that I know a lot of people. There's a lot of nervousness about, should they return to sport? Should they not return to sport? The one thing I look at is if we are allowed to return to sport and we have our athletes practicing and having competitions, then we're going to be able to monitor them. We'll be monitor them. We'll screen them every single day. And I think we're better off being able to do that than if they're not there. We're not going to be able to monitor them. We're not going to be able to do the contact tracing and that. It's going to be very, very difficult. So, I look at it a little bit like that. I'm not a doctor. I don't know what's best. I'm just trying to, figure out things that if we do play, what is it going to be the best way to do it? We're working very closely with our trainers from St. E's and Dr. Miller is with us every step of the way. And from my standpoint, that stuff, they've been fantastic on how they're handling everything. So I don't know if you all have anything further to add on that.
I mean, the biggest thing is the monitoring part. If we can monitor kids and try to get ahead of things and not let somebody in that might have something, I think that's going to be the most important part, and making sure that we're staying on top of it. Making sure our kids are being truthful about symptoms, because a lot of the young kids aren't sure of, what a fever is or what chills are and these things. And, our trainers, to Terry's point, just sent out an email today to make sure all of our student athletes understand, what we're looking for and what they need to be kind of on top of, so that they know what is a symptom and what's just an ache, from lifting too much and things like that. So definitely doing a lot on the monitoring side to try to stay ahead of it.
Continuing on in terms of monitoring and kind of a contact related questions, obviously those are a big concern for our student athletes. It's also a lot of concern around our spectators and what games will look like. I know that we've got a question over here in the chat asking specifically what they think, what do you think tailgating will look like in the fall? But I think we can even ask a broader question. Do we have any expectations or an image of what we think that attending games will look like this fall and going into the winter and the spring? Do we have any ideas yet what that will look like?
Terry.
I get that one.
Yep.
So, no, I don't. We follow the governor and the CDC guidelines. So all we can do is wait and see what those gatherings look like. I know the state of Kentucky was at 50. And I believe it might have just been rolled back to 10.
Yep.
So, to me, that tells me that we're not going to be able to have people. But obviously that can all change in the next 2 weeks. So we don't know right now. I would certainly hope we're going to have fans and be able to social distance them when they come in, put them in fans come in a mask and that. But we're gonna follow the governor. We're gonna follow the CDC guidelines and do what everything we can to keep everyone safe. And then we just got to play that by ear and see. We're gonna be set up to be able to stream everything that we can possibly stream from a home standpoint, a home event standpoint, so that if we can't have them, that people will be able to watch everything that we do. And that's going to be what we'll try and do this year, I guess.
I mean, it sounds like a plan for now. It's like you said, it's about adapting. It's about staying on top of what the guidelines and regulations are. I know you all have been working very hard to make sure that you're up to date, that the students are up to date. But in terms of being up to date, obviously there's a lot of questions. People are getting information from different places at different rates. I was wondering if each of you could talk about the biggest questions that you've been having, either from students, from parents, from other coaches maybe, or other people you've been talking to. What are the biggest questions that you're hearing around sports right now and the idea of reopening or resuming sports in the fall? If anyone wants to start that one off. Lindsay, Jeff, would you mind?
Yeah, I'll go first. I mean, I guess my biggest thing I get because of and something we just talked about was the tailgating. A lot of football parents asking about the tailgate. And so if they're listening, tuning in, everything's on hold until we figure out what's going to happen and what go with what Terry just said. So, that part of it. But out in the public, it's just what you think about having a season and playing. And, our players are ready. They want to have one just like everybody else. I mean, you feel bad for the spring sports that got shut down last year. We lost the national tournament, us and men's basketball, because of everything. But, and then you just don't want to see the fall sports have to go through it because it's tough. I mean, and so we want to get out there and play. And that's why, I know a lot of the teams are putting up some social media stuff out there about wearing masks and doing your part. And, everybody knows it's not a fun thing to do to put the mask on, but if it helps us be able to have our student athletes playing in the fall and sooner than later, then, and plus save lives and do that part of it for the community, then we have to. And so, that's what we're trying to talk about.
Yeah. I haven't had too many questions. I mean, our season isn't, our traditional season isn't for a while. So I think Trevor's probably getting the most questions here, but we're just trying to figure out, what things are going to look like and what kind of adjustments that we're going to need to make, with our practices and numbers and classes. I've had that question from a lot of my kids. A lot of classes are changing right now as well. So That's one question I've been getting from my players. It hasn't necessarily been athletic related, more academic right now.
And like Lindsay said, obviously with our season being so close, the question I get all the time is, are we going to have a season? I'm as hopeful as anybody that we are. It's one of those things, like you said, information is kind of, people are being bombarded with different things from different places. And for me, it's a matter of just kind of riding the waves until someone tells me yes or no, or how we're going to do it. And then, once we know that, then we're going to make a plan that's going to be the best plan for our team to play in the fall, or if it's not playing in the fall, it's playing in the spring or whatever it may be. We're going to be willing and ready to make adjustments so that our program are going to be in a great situation.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are asking, how's it going to look and I'll be honest, I don't think anybody knows. I mean, what type of testing is there going to be? Is there going to be testing? There's a lot of, everybody thinks, oh, you should test. Well, unless you're testing every day, what is the test really doing? If I test 7 days prior, yeah, right then we'll know to give us a good benchmark, but it won't stop something if somebody gets it 3 days later. So, I don't know that we have the best answers on that just yet. So those are all things we try and figure out. And like I said, we'll follow the NAIA, and that's our governing body. We'll follow them. We'll follow the governor and the CDC and see exactly what we can do and to keep it as safe as possible for everybody and do that. And I think, keeping our athletes here and being able to monitor them, I think we can do a lot of good by doing that.
And like you said, getting that full picture really is a struggle. It's something that, we're dealing with at every level of society right now. Sports being, just a really great case of that as well. And, adapting and like you said, staying in touch with regulatory bodies and making sure that everyone's on top of things.
Yeah, Michael, I think one of the things that that is underestimated a little bit here is these coaches and their relationship with the players and the student athletes that they have. They've gone from being with them every day for extended periods of time to all of a sudden not being able to be around them. And that's really difficult on them. We got through the fall season and the winter sports, basketball and both basketballs had their chance at the national tournament to try and make a run for a national championship, and both got cut short. Lindsay with the spring seasons, to walk out there and say, hey, we're done. Those young ladies were been playing their whole life for their spring season. All of a sudden it was taken away. That kind of stuff is really difficult. I don't think people realize how close these young athletes are with their teammates and how much it really means to them to be out there. It's I think that part last year was really difficult. So I think some hesitation is that, do people want to start the season and then may have to get shut down in the middle of the fall? Or would it be better just to push everything back? So I think there's a little bit of that going back and forth right now as well. So we're just gonna have to see where that plays out with the national bodies.
And Terry, something you mentioned, and I think it leads into another question that I had, but so much of you're right, so much of what our coaches do is built around the relationships that they have with their students, with their athletes, with their other coaches. And I was wondering if our coaches would be willing to talk about how those relationships have changed, how they've adapted, and what they're looking at trying to do for the fall to keep those relationships with the students.
I think first and foremost, for us, football wise, our players now, they're in a situation where they're kind of up in it's in the air. What are they going to be able to come back and start when school starts? Are we going to be able to do things like that? Lindsay touched on a little bit. For me, I'm more concerned about our students being able to be back at school, and to make sure that they can get their degrees and make sure they can continue to progress through the things that they need to really focus on. And when there's concerns about things like that, you never really know. And, you don't want something else weighing on their minds when they're getting an education, when they're, playing a sport, and there's other things that are more important in the grand scheme of things. So for us, it's a matter of just making sure that our players understand, where we're at right now, what we're working towards, and what our plans are currently, and making sure that they understand that we're going to keep them in the loop. As soon as we know something, they know something. So it's more about now, I think the relationship becomes even stronger because you're talking to them even more, and you're relaying a lot more messages, and they're talking to you a little bit more candidly about their concerns if they have them. So I think that's helped us, at least in the sense that our players know where we stand, and ones that have voiced concerns have voiced their concerns, and we're going to continue to make progress towards doing stuff the right way and to make sure we can keep everybody healthy.
Yeah, I think with the relationships over, March, April, May, I mean, we were talking to each individual kid on a weekly basis. It was almost like we were recruiting them again. I was talking to them so much, and just how they're doing academically and personally, and how their families are doing. And so that was a lot of one-on-one, where during season, it's more team oriented, and we might not have those individual conversations on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. So definitely increasing, trying to have better relationships with our players and find out what's going on with them, and how we can help them and move forward through this situation right now.
I concur. All of what they both said. It's brought you closer together with them, I think, and just like Lindsay said, more individual, because you're just talking to them and they're talking to you more about things, and you figure out some family stuff because of the tough times where people were being laid off or furloughed, and so you're talking to them more on a personal level than more of an athletic level at that point in time. And I think it helped us, and that's what will help us in the long run when we do get back in school and in classes, and then going forward into our sports and our teams. That those relationships will help us be stronger and be better, hopefully, going forward.
I couldn't agree more. And the fact that you all have adapted, and like you said, Jeff, taking that relationship and being willing to adapt to a more, that more one-on-one contact, that personal relationship, that says a lot about how much you care, how much time you're investing in the students. I really appreciate that. I know everybody does. I guess next question, one of them I'm getting from the audience is, what are you hearing as far as the general sentiment from your student athletes? Does it sound like they want to jump right back in ASAP? Do they sound more cautious? What are you hearing from your athletes? Trevor, I think you're a good one to start for this one.
I think anytime you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds, they've got one thing on their mind, and that's to play. So I think, there's going to be some that obviously are going to bring you some concern. But for the most part, our guys, they're chomping at the bit. They want to get back out there together. And that's the biggest thing that I think for football that drives great teams is the camaraderie and how close you are as a team. And, not being allowed to be around your teammates is not always fun, because, we want our guys to be best friends with each other. And it's hard not to be around your best friends all the time. So hopefully, that's probably their biggest concern is, when can I get back to be around my family? We want our football program to be kind of an extension of everybody's family and bring their own kind of flavor into it. And, for us, that's the part that we're most concerned about right now is, what's our family going to look like? How are we going to operate as a family? And, we obviously understand that we want to win a lot of football games, but we want to keep everybody healthy while we're doing it.
Yeah, they want to play. I mean, they want to be in school. That's like I think Lindsay's talked about earlier. That's we got some from out of town and out of the area this year, and they're excited to get up here to Thomas More and Crestview Hills and go to school first, and then they just want to play. I mean, they want to compete. They want to be with their teammates.
Yeah, I think they want to play and they want to get back to college. last semester they didn't, we got cut short, not only from our seasons, but all of the cool experiences that they have during college as well.
And they want to get out of their house. They want to get away from home. They want to get to the dorms. They're ready to be back to somewhat normal and away from mom and dad.
Yeah, I can I can imagine. I know that this has been difficult for a lot of people in a lot of different ways, and those relationships and keeping those strong and wanting to get back on the field, I can only imagine for them. Looking at alternatives, we have a question from the chat. Terry, you might be the guy for this one. Do we know if NAIA is on board to play football in the spring if it does decide to get pushed for the fall? Have you heard any discussion about that?
Yeah, there is discussion on that. I mean, obviously, you're looking at every possibility. There's discussion about moving the fall championships to the spring, and what that would look like, and starting everybody basically in January, starting all sports then and playing the championships, and playing the full season in the spring. So I have not heard of a scenario yet where they just say we're canceling. And not going to do it. I think it's more of a postponement if anything takes place. So, I looking at that, they'll decide what's best. And I think you're seeing several conferences across the country in Division II, Division III that have canceled. A couple NAIA have, and that. So we'll have to see if they do push that back and postpone it. But right now they have not. So we're still planning on gearing up and getting everything going. If they do push it back, there's also talk. So what they would do, I think, is they would allow you to have your basically like spring football you would have in the fall, and then go ahead and play your full season in the spring. I think that would be, if it's postponed, I think that would be the most likely scenario that they would do if they would make that move.
Gotcha. And along with alternative options, Terry, right at the outset, you had mentioned trying to get things filmed, trying to get things streamed, virtual options for spectators and for fans to engage with the teams and with the sports and with games. I do have a question asking specifically about, have we considered any kind of competitions virtually, either strength challenges, speed challenges, dunk challenges, anything like that, free throws maybe. But I guess more widely speaking, how do we see sports adapting to this more distanced environment? Do you think that there's room for more engagement in virtual communication with fans, virtual streaming? Do we see that as something that's going to continue to grow?
I think the virtual streaming, yes. The other things I'm not too sure about. I mean, it's about getting on the court, getting on the field, and competing. I don't see that changing. I guess there could be some virtual stuff. I don't know. I don't know if any of those three have looked, saw anything like that, but I certainly haven't. But then again, I'm really not very good with technology. So, this is a challenge in itself for me, but I don't know. I don't see that happening as much, but we'll see.
Thank you guys so much. The last question that I have here, really, we've talked about everything that you're doing for the students. I want to throw it kind of the other way around. What can our community do? What can the fans do? What can our alumni do to support our teams and to support you going into this fall? What do you guys need from the rest of your community right now?
Coaches, I'll let you guys take that.
For us, football-wise, since we're the one that's happening the earliest, is we just need people to wear their mask and practice the social distancing. Do everything you can to keep yourself healthy, because if you're healthy, your people you come in contact with are going to stay healthy as well. So everybody just has to do their small part, and hopefully as a whole we can accomplish what we want to do and get back to what we assume is going to be our new normal.
Yeah, maybe some of our alumni, could send upbeat messages to our current athletes, to to keep a positive atmosphere here and keep everyone excited, you know.
Yeah, I agree with those guys. I mean, we already talked about the mask stuff and whatever we can do to be there, and then just support. I mean, anything anybody can send via social media to the program's pages. I mean, just anything like that to keep our players, student athletes in the right frame of mind and ready to come back. Because like I said, I know these guys. I know Trevor is. I know Lindsay's and the other sports as well. They're chomping at the bit there. Everybody's ready to get back.
Yeah, we've got 28 sports, and you know, I think they all want to play. They want to be there, and you know, you talk about football in the fall, and you got soccer in the fall, and cross country, golf, tennis. You know, there's a lot of sports out there wanting to get going in that. So you know, and then right on their backs come the winter sports, and so it just keeps rolling, and they want to get out there. They, you know, they're in college. They want a normal life, and so let's all do what we can so that we can get them back out there and get going and get to see our alumni and everybody again coming back to games.
I think you put it really well. Thank you guys all so much, and I will make sure to have a link included to our sports pages and maybe some links to the social media as well included if people want to reach out and leave positive messages. And I would encourage our audience to do that, and to tell your friends to do that too. You know, our student athletes are in a real difficult position right now. Anything you can do to reach out and be supportive, to spread the love, and to most importantly, keep yourself and your loved ones safe. That's the best thing we can do right now. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time today to give us this update. I really appreciate it. I know that we're all really looking forward to seeing more of all of you and your teams coming this fall. And I know that you're doing everything that you can to keep our players and our students safe. So thank you guys again for joining me.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining More Talks, everyone. And we'll see you next time.